Hello, welcome to another MarketBeat Monday. We are so excited to have you with us live today. I already see some stock suggestions coming in the chat. We love to see it. If you've not been to MarketBeat Monday before, what we are doing here is going over some of the week's biggest market movers. We've got a couple of stocks that we want to talk about today, and then we're going to take your suggestions cold right from the chat. So make sure that you join. If you're a subscriber to this channel, it's really easy to join the chat right away so that our analyst, Chris Markoch and Thomas Hughes, can help walk us through all of these different stocks today. Guys, thanks so much for being here. We love Market Beat Mondays. I know our viewers have come to love it too. Let's talk about the biggest stock move of the day, and that's AMD. Really helping to lift the market quite a bit today. I know it was early news. A lot of investors have already seen it, but let's break it down. Thomas, give us a start at what's behind the big AMD jump.
Well, right. AMD has got a new partnership with OpenAI. It pretty much affirms what we've been talking about all along, which is AMD's ability to reclaim lost market share and establish itself as a real player in the AI GPU market. It's all tied to the launch of the MI450 line next year and their ability to deliver rack scale solutions. But ultimately, what's happening is OpenAI is expected to buy what has been described as tens of billions of dollars of GPUs starting middle of next year. Take a 10% stake in Advanced Micro Devices. To me, that's a really big deal because I don't believe that any of these other big hyperscalers have taken a stake in NVIDIA to this extent, where it looks like OpenAI is saying, hey, AMD is really where we want to get our GPUs from, to such a degree that we're going to own 10% of the company, get a spot on the board, potentially, and be able to influence their direction moving forward. I mean, the analyst response is pretty awesome. Wedbush Dan Ives is calling it one of those major moments in the AI revolution. To me, it's certainly a game changer, turning point for this company. I would expect to see some more deals following shortly, and for this to be reflected next year in the revenue. To me, tens of billions of dollars is basically worth 100% of this year's revenue. So this deal alone is enough to boost this company by 100% based on the forward outlook.
Right.
That's a lot. You brought up the analyst ratings. We've got one new one today showing up on MarketBeat.com benchmark, boosting the target from 210 to 270, which would be quite the upside for this company. I like to see that higher rating. That's the highest that I've seen so far.
Well, right. So check this out. Part of this deal, AMD is issuing warrants to OpenAI, which is essentially an option for them to buy the stock at a penny and sell it for a higher price. And these warrants are an incentive for OpenAI to actually follow through and to spend tens of billions of dollars on GPUs. So what this is really an assurance that this deal isn't smoke and mirrors. But the critical part that I want to talk about right now is that some of the strikes on these warrants are like in the $600 range. So these people are really thinking that it's possible that AMD's stock price, based on this deal and the deals that are going to be following, are going to push it up to $600. That's another 200% gain from where we are right now, which I think is totally doable.
Oh, absolutely.
That is a lot of growth ahead for this company. Really interesting stock to talk about. Let me know in the chat.
When do those warrants expire, Thomas? Did you know?
They're all based on milestones. So
okay.
I think it's it has to. Some of them are for AMD and some of them are for OpenAI, but they have to spend a certain amount by a certain time.
Okay.
And then I kind of work in lockstep with each other to make this infrastructure deal unfold. But really, what it's showing deep commitment on both sides to spend the money and to build the thing. And and the thing is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say too, I like all the stock suggestions coming into the chat. We're going to cover as many as we can today, like we usually do. But let me know what you think about what Thomas and Chris just said about AMD. Do you think that price target of 270 this year, 600 in the near future with all of this growth is possible for AMD? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat about what is going on with this stock and how much further it could grow. All right, so after AMD, let's just do a quick overview with the heat map right now. Do we see much movement anywhere in the market? Any sector seeing a lot of movement right now today?
I mean, what I saw was a lot of movement in tech. I mean, all across in all the different sectors, there's a name pretty important to technology. You got Amazon, Netflix, um, and then in the actual tech sector, Google, Meta, Oracle, um,
Yeah.
Microsoft, and then in like transportation, there's Tesla and some of the big defense names, all moving higher. And to me, all because of technology, but all because of AI, their ability to either develop or to implement AI.
Very good. Well, that is a look. We've got so many different stock suggestions coming in right now. I think we're just going to dive in and spend most of the time today just looking at the stocks that you want to hear about, because that's what we're here for. I love we already got our first super chat. This is something new that we're trying. If you're a regular on live shows, you've probably done them before, but we haven't much. So we have My Vision, My Life doing the first stock pick of the day, guys, and that is ATYR. Thomas, I'll have you look that up. ATYR. Again, if you want to get your stock suggestion to stand out in the chat, just do a super chat. It's an easy way for me to actually spot it and make sure that we cover it in the show. So many other great stock suggestions coming in. It's hard to pick right now. So we'll look at ATYR first, and then let's do BTGD. Fred says it's really moving right now, so I want to check that one out.
BTGD. Okay, I'll look at that one.
Chris is looking at that one. I'm going to pull up ATYR here and see what we've got. What are you seeing so far?
Well, my first look was at the chart, and the chart's ugly. It doesn't inspire me to think that it's going to be a viable stock. What we have is a pharma company, clinical stage, discovery development, RNA synthetase biology. It seems like some, I'm sure, important research, pre-revenue, no revenue company, no earnings, burning money. Let's check out the news flow. What are we seeing here? Present. All right. So they recently released some data from a test, and they missed their main goal. So, they're not really progressing their research the way that they want to. ATYR. Let's see what the analysts say. I can't imagine they're going to be too positive on it right now.
Yeah,
8 call it a hold. The consensus is calling for a 2,000% upside, but
yeah, I don't think that's right.
Well, right. So, all of the recent activity, since the results were released, include downgrades. None have a price target. So that price target is based on the targets that were set before the results were released. Those were pretty aggressive and very hopeful. So what I'm seeing is a company that had a lot of hope ahead of this test release that had been dashed, and now the market's just not there for the stock anymore. I don't expect this one to rebound unless there's some good news. And without a pipeline product or a test getting ready to release some results that could trump the bad results, there's not going to be much hope for this to rebound anytime soon.
All right, it looks like that another one we've got coming in that we're going to get to before we get to yours, Chris. Let's just do one we've talked about many times on the channel, and that is Applied Digital. This one has had quite a big jump and then some pullback, just a little bit of volatility happening. I know last week, Thomas, your suggestion was if you haven't taken any profits on Applied Digital yet, it would be a good time to do that. Just pulling up the chart, right. It's really solid 1 month, 5-day performance.
Right. Looking at the chart, just today's action, this is a weekly candle, so it's not really a firm signal, but today's candle is a shooting star doji, so it's kind of affirming this peak that I've been kind of fearing. I think APLD reports results on Thursday evening, right? So a lot of expectations. We're really going to want to see a really strong report, or if not that, a really strong outlook based on a growing pipeline, right, to help support this rally. But I think with how strong this rally has been and the way the chart is set up, it could pull back and correct even with a good result, provide a buy the dip opportunity just for people taking profits. The stock is up how much? Several 100% in just a few months. So it could easily be a take profit event no matter what the what the results are. But again, still expecting some pretty strong results to help support this uptrend over time.
Yeah, really good look at Applied Digital. I think earnings is going to be so interesting for this company. Let me know in the chat. Did you get in on Applied Digital early by watching our videos? I know we were talking about this stock when it was around $5 or $6, maybe even sooner than that. So I know a lot of our viewers have had some really good gains on this one. I hope that's you. Let me know if it is in the chat. All right, let's move on to the one that you had for us, Chris.
Yeah. So the one that you gave me was the BTGD. So that is the STKD 100% Bitcoin and 100% gold ETF. And it really doesn't get much simpler than that, because that's what the ETF is. It's all into it's an ETF that is completely dedicated to owning Bitcoin and owning gold. And so 100% of its assets it reinvests 100% of its assets in Bitcoin and 100% of its assets in gold, giving investors 200% exposure. We should just clarify right now, this is going to be an ETF for short-term traders only, because a long-term investor could get stuck with much more volatility than they want. Obviously, because of the price movement in Bitcoin and gold, this ETF is up sharply just in the month of October. As far as getting involved in it, again, I think if you're a trader and you're willing to accept the volatility, I don't see right now a reason why you wouldn't want to get in on this, because gold and Bitcoin have been moving higher even with the government shutdown, which you would think might be bearish for the dollar. But you can already see that gold's moving to a new high. Bitcoin hit 125,000, I believe it was yesterday, and it held it today. So gold and Bitcoin are still a story, and they're going to be a story. And it's a risk-on story, but it's not a risk-on story because they are correlating with stocks, but that's not the story. The reason why they're moving higher has nothing to do with what they feel about stocks. It's what they have to feel about the dollar.
Yeah, before we move on to another stock, again, I've got so many coming in. I love to see this. Let's just talk a little bit about why we're seeing such a huge run up in gold right now. I mean, I feel like the story on gold is it's a new all-time high every time. And we have so many investors, a lot of people in our channel aren't big gold fans. They don't want to invest in gold. They're not really interested in gold stocks. But it's kind of getting hard to ignore when we just keep hitting new all-time highs.
You want to start, Thomas?
Sure. To me, the gold story is simply supply and demand spiked with stimulus dollars. So you got to think all those stimulus dollars that were put in the economy during the pandemic are still affecting things, and they're affecting the gold price. But on top of that, there's a limited supply of gold. We pretty much know where it all is. Whatever hasn't been recovered is getting harder and harder to get. Estimates say that we've recovered like 85 or 90% of all the gold that we can get. And then with that limited supply, there's increasing demand. So globally, all the demand vectors are very strong, starting with central banks who are increasing their gold supplies to diversify their balance sheets. And in emerging markets, they're using gold to stabilize their balance sheets, stabilize their currencies, and provide themselves some protection from macroeconomic headwinds. Why would they want to do that? And then, globally, the middle class is expanding rapidly. And with middle class expansion comes the ability to buy gold jewelry and gold coins. And that's really a big draw on gold. And then on top of all that, there's AI. The data centers don't have to have gold to make their products. They don't need gold for the GPUs, but gold is very good for a lot of the applications which need good conductivity and resistance to corrosion and the ability to withstand, high temperatures and high energy transfers. So really, it's just not a lot of gold, and a lot of people want gold, and that just means that there's not a lot on the market, and the prices go up in that situation.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just funny because nobody's asking about gold stocks to talk about in the chat, but it is a story that it's hard to ignore. Like I said, there's just always seeing these new all-time highs. So interesting to diversify if you're not there yet.
Yeah, if you're looking at gold right now in terms of stocks, you'd probably want to look at the miners, because that's probably where the catch-up trade's going to be. Is the mining stocks haven't had the run that gold's had. So if you're looking to invest in gold through stocks, I would say mining stocks are the way you want to do it. There's some good old-fashioned FOMO going on in gold too, but I think for all of the reasons Thomas stated, this is a real rally, and I don't think it's always possible that you're going to see a pullback in gold. That's possible, but you would have to see central banks start to sell a massive amount of the gold that they've bought to make a meaningful or real meaningful pullback in gold from where it is right now. Because I believe today it hit 4,000. I didn't check. I thought I saw a headline come through that said it hit 4,000. So, you'd have to see some significant selling by those major players.
Yeah.
It's not just going to happen because the people that stop buying it at Costco.
Right. I've got a list of 4 stocks ready to go here in just a second. But before we get into those, I know I've got so many other stocks coming in. Sharman had such a good question. I love to see you here again, Sharman. Thanks for being here. She's wondering when we expect the next pullback. I think it's a good question because we were just talking about gold. That usually is that a little bit of fear factor in there of what's going on with the economy, people looking for safety. We're in the middle of a government shutdown and the market's still pretty much going wild. Do we expect a pullback anytime?
In the stock market.
In the stock market, not in gold, just in the market in general.
Right. I've been kind of wondering that myself because it seems like the market is in a place where it should pull back a little bit and give us a little correction. But we're also in this place where I think that the market could just kind of continue to accelerate because the earnings outlook is positive, because right now the forecasts for earnings are moving higher. That's a tailwind. The AI thing with AMD and NVIDIA's other deals, also very good for the market. And so I just read an article today or saw an interview with Paul Tudor Jones talking about how the market is set up to have this really wicked rally through the end of the year. I see that as being totally possible. He was concerned about the pullback happening at the end of this next massive rally and possibly becoming a blow off top. I'm not going to speculate about that yet, but I do think that the market could continue to move higher and possibly accelerate with momentum through the end of the year, reaching my 74 to 7,600 target, possibly blowing past that before the end of the year. And then at that point, it just depends on how the economic data unfolds and the outlook for next year, whether or not we get a blow off top or a consolidation, and we can talk about that later on then.
Yeah. Chris, any predictions from you on if there's a market pullback coming?
I agree with Thomas in the sense that when you see what's going on in the market right now, it feels like the market's slowing down. The momentum is slowing down a little bit. But I think the market would need a significant catalyst to send it down right now. One of those gray swans or those black swans. And the thing about a gray swan or a black swan is the nature of it is you don't know when they're coming, but they're going to, I think it's going to take something like that. I don't know what that something would be. And right now it seems like there's more bullish reasons to believe that the market's going to go higher than to start, looking for something that the data shows that the data is just not showing is there.
All right, very good. I've got one more super chat to talk about, and that's the GLD. We were just talking about gold, and they want to hear a little bit about that. I am going to get into some other stocks here just to give you a little preview of what I've got on my lineup. I want to talk about the quantum stocks. We had quite a few people asking about those, and they are still going up today. So we're going to talk about some quantum stocks. There's a couple of small cap stocks that were really interesting that somebody asked to look into, so we're going to get into those too. But for now, let's look up GLD, guys. What are we seeing on that one, and whether now is the time to get in?
Yeah, GLD is one of the gold ETFs.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it's just holding gold, so if you either own an ETF and physical gold, it might be easier for you to get, your exposure that way. It's a good viable choice, I think.
Yep.
A good place to start, even at this price point.
The same as for gold, it looks pretty high and it can pull back. But the demand fundamentals are saying, gold's going to go higher.
Right.
Yeah. All right, quantum. This is what everyone's excited about. So let's get to that one next. Rigetti and QBT, we'll talk about those two. I mean, we could talk about all of them, but I think they all kind of do a lot of the same thing. I'm going to pull up the Rigetti one because it had quite a nice little pop today, up 41% in 5 days. And it looks like a big of it came just today.
Yeah, they're certainly defying my expectations. I haven't heard any big news about any big breaks, so we're still kind of waiting for them to make their big breaks and develop these commercialized technologies. But I think the market is more and more sure that it's going to happen sooner rather than later, and that's what we're seeing in the price action.
You know, last time we talked about these quantum computing stocks on MarketBeat Monday, we were talking about buying how they all kind of move together and how it's a good time to buy when they're not at these all-time highs. But if people are they're having that FOMO, they're seeing these huge jumps that these stocks are doing, could you get in right now? Or are you just looking for a loss if you're getting in on a quantum stock at this point?
Well, I would say, when I'm just taking a glance through Rigetti here, and one of the reasons why the stock popped is because it got purchase orders for 2 major systems, and the orders were worth about $5.7 million, and they're going to ship in the first part of next year. And so when you look at Rigetti, I mean, $5.7 million is, it's a significant amount of their yearly revenue. So that's why the stock is popping so much. The question with something like this is this a one-off event? Is this something that's going to continue to go? I don't know. I'm just looking here real quickly. Bridget, yeah, I mean, short interest in Rigetti's still at around 14%. So I'm going to question whether or not it can hold the gain that it has. But
yeah,
I don't. Quantum computing stocks are a speculative play, which doesn't mean they're not a buy. It just means I think you have to have realistic expectations for what these are going to do. There's going to be a lot of volatility in these stocks. If you can handle that, then I certainly believe they're stocks worth investing in, but you have to understand that there's volatility involved.
Yeah, all of the quantum stocks have had volatility through the years, but they've also had huge gains. So that's something to keep in mind.
That's what I'm saying. If you're willing to hold it and you realize that this gain could take profits when it hits this gain and then wait for it to do it again, that's fine. But you've got to be willing to play the game a little bit. You can't just be a passive buy and hold investor with these.
It's a really good point. I've got QUBT pulled up too. It looks like it's down. It's finished the day a little bit down, but again, still up almost 50% in a month. It's one of many quantum stocks that are up about that same amount. There's differences between all of them, but they're all seeing very similar jumps right now. Another thing just to point out is that I think that they're all jumping far above the consensus price target, although QUBT, the consensus price target does look like there's still some room for that one. Rigetti was quite a bit above what analysts have it for.
Right. I mean, I think that the quantum market is a really popular speculative market for retail traders, and we're kind of seeing them pile into these names en masse, regardless of which one is which. And what's probably going to happen is over the next couple of quarters, maybe longer than that, one of them will probably differentiate itself, actually making a leap forward that says, hey, we are able to produce this in a way that other people aren't. And then that'll start showing up in the stock price. And then that's the one that you're going to want to start being more of an investor with. And until then, it's going to be like Chris was saying, just pick one, watch the market, know that when it's down, it's possibly a buy, but it could still keep going down, and it'll probably go up. And when it does go up, take some profits, because the next day it could go back down again.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just trying to scroll through and pull up for our viewers here the many different, quantum computing stocks I have. I've got IonQ pulled up right now too. That one's up almost 90% in a month. So they're all up a lot in the last month. Some of them up more than others. A really good discussion on quantum stocks. If I'm missing any that we haven't pulled up yet, let me know in the chat if there's any other quantum stocks that you're interested in. I've got some more ground to cover though, guys. So let's get on to some other companies here. ASTS, this is what John wanted to know about. John, glad you're here. This one had a really good run up. We've covered this one lots of time. ASTS SpaceMobile up 71% for the month, just 28% in the last 5 days. It looks like today another strong gain after a strong gain last week. It's a really good chart.
Oh yeah, it does look pretty good. This company is, developing, deploying its network of satellites, getting ready to have coverage for mobile service, not globally and not 100% through all of its territories, but a very strong showing by the end of this year, with I believe 100% of North America by the end of next year, and then their other territories in the following year. But what we're looking at is the onset of hyper growth and profitability in the face of a high short interest. So we've got investors piling in for good fundamental reasons, short sellers, concerned but possibly getting squeezed out, and a really high expectation for this current quarter's earnings, because this is when they're supposed to really start recognizing the revenue that's been logged in their backlog. 24 million.
Yeah.
Right. So we're looking at like a several thousands of percent growth this quarter. The forecast is probably low because with them bringing their network online, they're going to start realizing revenue from numerous contracts at once. Not just from the governments, not just from single cell carriers, but from numerous cell carriers. And even if this coming up earnings report is still a little bit shy, like the last one was, this bubble of revenue growth is in the pipeline and it's coming. It's just a matter of when it gets here into the report.
Yeah. One thing to mention really quick on ASTS is that the float is about 20% short interest right now. So good thing to talk about with that.
One of the things that I would mention with that, Bridget, and you've heard me say this numerous times regarding Palantir, is that one of the things that I look at with this is when you see a move this high up, is I'm not paying so much attention to what the ceiling for the stock is, but what the floor. And it just recently got a price target boost from Barclays to $60. And so all of a sudden now, if the stock's trading around 72 and you're talking about possibly dropping to 60, that doesn't necessarily seem as intimidating to investors as it might be as if it pulled back to the consensus price, which is around 45. So to Thomas's point, the company's getting ready to report earnings. Analysts are already starting to raise their price targets heading into the earnings. That tells me that there's a higher floor, that the floor is moving higher for this stock, and that makes it a little bit safer for investors to start trying to go into the stock.
Well, I was just checking the news flow, and the recent stories are that it provided a production update affirming its target to have a certain number of satellites up in orbit, and having newly completed satellites being ready for launch. So right now we're just looking at a really positive news flow cycle, positive outlook, improving sentiment, many tailwinds. I'm sure if we were to go look at the institutional activity, they've probably been buying very strongly too. Yeah, so just lots of positive market forces at play here.
Good. Well, we've got some more stocks to cover. We're going to kind of rapid fire through these next ones, but I thought that they were interesting enough charts that I wanted to pull them up. I'm going to have both of you guys look into it. It's Data Vault AI, DVLT. This is a smaller penny stock. And the other one is Resolve AI, RZLV. I'm going to pull up that chart. There's been some volatility in this stock, RZLV, but actually, when I say some volatility, there's been quite a bit of volatility in this one, but it seems interesting. There's a lot of movement here. And of course, anything AI related tends to do pretty well. Consensus price target still has some room to grow in this one too. So I'll give you guys some time to look that one up. Resolve AI, RZLV. And then the other one that we are looking at is the Data Vault AI, DVLT. This one is a little penny stock that has had quite a run up 53% in 5 days, up 580% in the last month. What do we know about either of these companies?
Well, the first look at Data Vault, it's a data management platform. So that certainly fits into the whole AI infrastructure boom story we've been talking about. Let's see, it offers cutting edge solutions and unparalleled customer support. All right, so those all sound pretty good. Chart definitely looks good. Let's see. They've got some right on. They've got several new partnerships with people securing funds for investment. IBM has committed resources for platform growth. So it looks like a good idea in a startup company with some pretty solid support from other bigger players. And we are in still a very low earning company with only 1.7 million in revenue last quarter, but in a wicked hot hyper growth phase where we're growing at an accelerating triple digit pace. So it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's an interesting name. I wanted to talk about that because we haven't had it on MarketBeat Monday before. I always get excited about new stocks. It's always fun to see a company that or a ticker that we haven't seen on the channel before. Let's go over to RZLV. I don't know, Chris, if you've had time to look at that. I'm just starting with what analysts are saying.
Just a little bit. I mean, this kind of speaks to the marketer that I am at heart, and it just this is kind of the retail face of AI. It's an interesting company, and I'm looking at it cold. I will admit that, but
Right.
It's an e-commerce solution. It's an e-commerce AI company that's using software as a service. It's interesting in that way.
Right. We hit on this one before a little bit, or I mean,
Okay.
I've heard it. Right, and they're good. Yeah, good news flow.
Yeah.
They've got good support for the market. They've been outperforming. Just joined the Russell 2000. That was over the summer. Let's see here.
Institutions are buying it in the last quarter. Actually, 3 out of the last 4 quarters, institutional buying has been really strong. So
they provided a mid-quarter guidance update and increased their ARR target, and that's pretty good.
Yep.
Right. So looks like another good AI AI applying company with some strong market support, good fundamental outlook.
Yeah, great suggestion. Thanks for bringing this one up there. I think the interesting thing is that you've got a number of analysts that are actually looking at this relatively small company, and you've got a price target as high as $15 on this one, just from an analyst just a couple of days ago on October 2nd. Right. So it's an interesting potential growth stock at a really low entry point. So that's the kind of stocks we like to hear about sometimes.
Well, it's the application side of AI, which I think that's the intriguing part of it, because there's going to be that, we're already into that sort of that second wave of AI, which is getting into the software area. And now this is showing this is application oriented. This is how consumers are going to start interacting with AI in a retail space. It's an interesting stock.
I know.
We're going to talk about.
I'll say the next year or two could be really interesting for AI applying companies, because the forecasts that I've been seeing and have been keeping up with since AI kind of became a thing were that the second wave, the application wave, the application industry, portion of AI was going to be, much larger, significantly larger, 3 or 4 times as big as the infrastructure, and grow faster. So all that we've seen so far with NVIDIA is getting ready to happen again with application, only bigger and better. I mean, if that's even imaginable.
And Thomas, I've got you pulled up next to a chart of SoundHound. Speaking of application of AI, we had a few people asking about SoundHound, very much in the same area of the application of AI, and that's companies like SoundHound also fitting into that outlook that you were just talking about. People in the chat wanting to know if SoundHound is a buy right now, or if it's still not pulled back enough to get in yet.
I don't know that it's really going to be pulling back right now anytime soon. It looks like it's been ratcheting its way up through these resistance barriers. Last week it made a definitive move above critical resistance. Now we're up into this next kind of an open zone where it could rise up into the 22, 24 level before it hits the next, strong resistance point. And, based on some of the moves I've been seeing in some of the other small cap tech AI companies that I follow, that could happen in like a day. I mean, today, tomorrow, this week, puts out the next positive news bit, and the stock's going to be up there at the record highs.
It can absolutely happen so fast. All right, another sector that we are going to talk about is the drone sector, the defense sector. We've got a couple of different questions about that. Mara B wants to know specifically about Dragonfly, and that's one that I'd actually talked about. I just interviewed, or will be interviewing, the CEO this week, so stay tuned to the channel for one of our regular videos that comes out just after market close. We are talking to the CEO of Dragonfly Drones. Again, he's been on the channel before. He gives so many insights on what is coming up in the drone industry, and And it's really a robotics conversation too, of how much development and investment is happening in this area. It's very interesting. But pulling up the chart for DRPO, that one has seen a nice little pop. And I know it's because of a recent contract, the military contract. They just got signed, a really big one. Anything else you guys want to talk about with Dragonfly? We've talked about it on the channel before. It is finally seeing this pop a couple of months after we first talked about it on the channel.
Yeah, it just looks like a good story that's starting to gain the traction that was expected of it. Still, a very low earning company, again with 1.5 million in revenue last quarter, but entering a hot growth phase. Expected to grow 100% next year. Certainly has some tailwinds with the government spending expected to increase, and drones and unmanned vehicles kind of a focus of that.
Right.
Right. Very, very interesting. And there's a couple of other ones that we should talk about too in the drone sector. I think there's a few names that people have put out there. Red Cat is one that we talked about, talking about. I think that's RCAT. Is that right?
Yeah. RCT is Red Cat.
Yep. This one had a nice little jump up too recently. Just pulling up that chart for everybody. Red Cat's having a really strong year. This is another drone company out there. Again, some new defense contracts getting announced are behind some of these different moves that we're seeing, but up 40% in 5 days, up 70% in the last month. I think the question for, and actionable advice for viewers out there as we pull up some of these charts on these drone stocks, if you see a big jump in a stock like this or like Dragonfly, is it a time to get in? Do you wait for a pullback? When you're seeing this much momentum, when is a good entry point?
Well, for entries and things, you're going to want to have target levels that are your trigger points. So if the stock were to move up and cross your trigger, then that would be a good time to buy. Certain rules of thumb would be like if your trigger point is resistance point X, if the stock is within 3% of X, then it's a buy. So just targeting your target points, your resistances, your supports and resistances, waiting for your breakouts, and using those for your triggers, and then keeping your entries close to those trigger points so that you're not chasing prices and cutting away your own profits.
A really good point. Anything else to say about the different increases that we're seeing in drones? The same conversation. I feel like we have this one every week. Joby and Archer Aviation. Have we seen any moves in those? They're not drones, but they're in that same kind of automation, robotics, aerial development that drones are. So we'll pull those charts up really quick. Again, I think this is an every week discussion, but they had a little bit of a pullback in September.
Joby. Yeah, Joby's setting new highs today. That looks pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't see any new news, but it's the same story with them. It's just the evolution of their fundamental story and them approaching commercial viability.
And Archer's trading right in line with that. They're hitting an all-time high today, I believe, as well. They've been up strongly in the last month, and I think it's the same story. It's it's becoming a reality now, and I think people are finding more reasons to say yes to these stocks than to say no.
Yeah, right. So for Joby, they were at an air show this weekend I just saw, and they performed several demonstration flights.
Right.
So today's move is, I'm sure, a lot of investor confidence after seeing those flights and just them being assured that the technology is advancing and that it does what they say it can do.
Yeah. I think my one last question on these two stocks, just because they come up so often, when you see a run up like this, both of them reaching new highs or almost new highs, seeing this nice big jump, if you got in early on either of these, do you take some profits when you see a jump like this? Or is this still just such an early stage for these companies that you just keep holding strong to see what the future has in store a year or two down the road?
Well, that's another interesting question. It depends on what your outlook is. If you're in it for, swing for the fences, capture all the growth, you put your position in, and as the stock moves higher, you can add to it. But if you trade a different way, you have a single position and it moves up. If you get a certain amount of profit, then you're going to want to take some profits off the table. Right. One of the things that I do with my speculative tech plays is when it hits 100%, take half off. That way you get all your money back, and what's left is just pure profit. And if it keeps going higher, that's awesome. Recently, I personally had the conundrum of because it happens so very rarely in my life that my 100% turned into 200%. And so I said, well, what do I do now? Do I take more profits? And for me, the answer was yes. It makes no sense to see those profits there and not get some back off the table, because all too often the market will turn on you. And next thing you know, those profits are gone. And you're like, well, dang, that was an awesome trade, only I completely messed it up. Right. So if you have profits, the only time to get them is when you have them. So if you have them, it's probably best to take some.
Yeah, at least take some. That's some good balanced advice there. All right, let's rapid fire through a couple more names before we wrap up today. This one is such a big stock that I don't want to ignore it. We're talking about Taiwan Semiconductor. Earnings is the 16th, I believe. The stock has had a really good month, up 24%, and this is a big company, so to have a jump like that is pretty good. Let me double check that earnings date. I'm pretty sure, yeah. It looks like estimate is October 16th, so I think it's coming up pretty soon. What do we think about Taiwan Semiconductors? There's been so much in the news about it this year with all of the bringing the manufacturing to the U.S. Analysts seem pretty happy about this stock, although it's trading above its consensus price target right now. Any thoughts on how high this one could move?
I think it could keep going higher. It's pretty critical to the AI story, making, NVIDIA's GPUs and other GPUs. It's also critical to the onshoring of U.S. production because TSM is building facilities here. It's partnered to build facilities here. And even if it wasn't building its own facilities here, it's still going to be part of the supply chain. So it would be critical, to production in America. So I think all of that is pretty bullish for the stock.
Very good. I'm gonna a couple of smaller names here, a couple that we've had on the channel before. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm throwing these out quick. NVTS Microvast. This stock is up 10% in the last 5 days, up 80% in the last month. If you don't know what Microvast is, this is Microvast Holdings. It's a global provider of lithium-ion batteries. So this is one of those battery stocks we've talked about, kind of not the same, but we've talked about it with AMPX before, I believe. Is this whole sector seeing a little boost right now, Thomas? Anything you can say about the battery sector?
It looks like this stock is getting a boost. Let me check on the news and see what it says. It could be part of the defense boost because the batteries are pretty critical to drones and all of these different vehicles and advanced technologies they're making.
It doesn't have a ton of institutional buying, but it does look like there was significant. It's been a significant increase.
It looks like a growth story.
Yeah.
Reverting to profits. Outlook is positive. I mean, I don't see anything like outrageously bullish, but there certainly is demand for batteries. Yep. This company is growing.
Say if you were in this stock a year ago, you are doing quite well right now, depending on how much you bought. So interesting how fast some of these stories can grow. Another smaller company that a couple of viewers asked about is CDLX. This one is not the huge growth story, although in the last month it's had a nice little jump, but before that it's still down from where it was before. Again, this is a smaller penny stock, but that's what we like about MarketBeat Monday is we cover the biggest stocks to the smallest stocks out there. We cover everything. This is operates and purchases intelligence and marketing platform that connects advertisers with consumers. Interesting.
It's what's it doing? It's tracking bank and credit card transaction data and using that to provide insights. Right. So, that could be a good business. Certainly if they're applying AI, using that to get some kind of insight that businesses can't get on their own.
Right.
Analyst sentiment, they've got 5 coverings, so that's, it's a fair amount. 3 as a whole, 1 sell, 1 buy. Price target has crashed in the last year. Mm-hmm. They're leading it down to where it is right now. Right. So seems like it could be good, but right now maybe it's not. Maybe keep that one on your watch list and Be
See,
aware of how the outlook develops.
very good. All right. Well, I've got one more name that a few different people have asked about. If there's any one other stock you guys really want to get in, do a super chat really quick and I'll get it on my radar really quick. But I'm going to pull up Path. We just had a few different people asking and we'll see what's going on. PATH. And it has had a good little jump, up 11.5%.
Yeah.
In 5 days. I don't know what this company is. I think we've talked about it before, but I don't remember.
We're talking about Path, UiPath, or
Yes.
LPTH LightPath?
UiPath.
UiPath. All right. So UiPath is business automation. They had like business bots, AI bots before AI was a thing. Surprisingly, they've had a hard time gaining traction, and you can see that in the stock price. I need to check on the news for that one, but it looks like maybe they started to show some traction. Reveals new collaborations with NVIDIA, OpenAI, Snowflake, and Google. So fantastic. UiPath is starting to expand its ecosystem to include the actual big players in AI. So this is huge news for it. Maybe now it will finally be able to unlock its revenue stream and really, provide the stock surge that we've been looking for the last couple of years.
Yeah, another good company, a good one to end on. I think the last conversation here. Oh, you know what? We've got one other super chat that came in really quick. We'll see what the stock is. But I'm going to pull up Tesla because we talked about before we came on today that there is a potential announcement coming with Tesla. It got a nice little boost today. What's behind that?
I don't know what the announcement could be, but apparently there was some social media post that had 10.7 in it. So people are assuming that means there's something happening tomorrow on the 7th. Right. I don't know if that's the reason why the stock went up, but there's a lot of things, that happen with Tesla stock that sometimes don't actually make a lot of sense. But as far as the direction of Tesla, I'm still believe the stock's going to go higher. I think there's just a lot of things happening with the company now that go beyond it being just a car company, and I think those things are showing fruition. And I would think that Tesla is going to be a buy from here.
Yeah, there's just too much happening with this one. All right, I think that we are probably wrapping up for the day. Any other catalysts that you guys are looking ahead for this week that could be market movers? It's been, we're getting into earnings season. I know we've got some different earnings coming up. Is anything moving the needle there?
For me, we're looking at results from Delta, PepsiCo, and Levi Strauss. Not really going to sway the market's, opinion too strongly in any direction, I think, but it should give us a pretty fair assessment of what to expect from the earnings cycle. I mean, Delta is transportation, travel. PepsiCo is consumers and consumer staples. Levi's consumers and retail again, e-commerce. Yeah. So it should give us a pretty, a pretty fair assessment, grounding starting point on what to expect from the season.
Right.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for MarketBeat Monday. We've covered a whole lot of ground today. I think we got to get an ending point, and I'm getting 3:50 after 50 minutes. I'm trying to wrap us up. So, Thomas, Chris, thank you as always for the great insights today. Everyone joining us today live, thank you for all of the awesome chats. You had so many great comments and great suggestions to talk about. We'll try to fit in even more next week. We hope you've enjoyed this MarketBeat Monday with all of our live look at the different movers in the market this week. Join us again next week. We'll be live at Market Close every Monday for this live chat of the different stocks that you want us to look at. As always, everyone, happy investing.